On this episode of the Construction Dorks, we pick up the to be continued from the Contact Crew. We were on there doing the news and having such a fun time that we thought we'd go ahead and continue it over here. We don't do this often, but when we do it, it's a lot of fun. So please tune in and enjoy.
And we're live, episode 89, breaking the fourth wall of podcasting, if it even exists. It's just us. If you look around, all you're going to see is dorks, and it's dorks all day. And we're continuing on because we started this on the Contact Crew and we're finishing on the Construction Dorks. I am really excited because how often do you get to kill two birds with one stone and have two podcasts at the same time? Well, it's not the same time, but it's right after it. So that's where we're at. Jonathan Marsh, take us away.
Take us away. I'm going to have my coffee, Jeff. He did this to me on the last one, too. He's like, and
Here
you're
you go.
up.
Here, have a grenade.
Except on this show, I can say it. Here's your grenade, John. See you later.
Well, let's just start with politics, and we'll move into religion, and then we'll be good.
Okay,
right?
perfect.
We'll hit all the major ones, and there'll be no freaking problems whatsoever.
We should bring them together, and then
yes, that's right.
No, but we were talking about the longshoremen, and we were talking sort of about that idea that automation is something that's both needed within every industry, but also sort of a threat to the people within it at times. And I gotta say, I ended up spending a lot of time looking as that was going on at like, what has this happened in the past, and like who's it happened to and everything else. And like I was saying in the last episode, the typeset union, all right, managed to hold off electronic typeset till like I think it was like in the 80s when they finally like let go. So this has happened before, but what do you think? Do you think it's healthy? Like, I have to say, looking at everything, looking at the pay rates and everything else, I thought this was healthy. And I say that partly because in my mind, it's over right now. And I didn't, it was not insanely impactful. It had an impact. They got their raise, which they should have got because you need to balance the coasts. But what do you think? I don't even know if they got anything on the automation side.
They didn't.
No, they haven't yet.
Yeah, they kicked that one to a later, which I think was actually like really, really smart. And it may have been some tactics too, but I think it was really, really smart that they handled the wage impact first and foremost and right sized that and figured that out, because that was probably the most glaring issue, that you have a West Coast and an East Coast that are paid very, very differently. When is the work really that different in those two coasts? I don't think so.
I don't know the volume. I guess I don't know, like,
Yeah, the volume. The only other thing I would say is the market and the cost of living in different areas. I would hopefully that you kind of right size there.
but East Coast, and I mean, it's what I
The
don't
coasts
know
are
is,
pretty equal, I would think.
I don't know like what volume of goods come in the West Coast versus the East. I don't know. That would be interesting to know, but I'm not sure I know enough about that to speak on it. So, because in a supply and demand world, I guess you could see a wage disparagement there if 80% of the goods are hitting the West Coast versus. I don't think that's true, mind you, but I mean,
no, actually, I think it's pretty well even, just given the distribution, because it has to be because of the way we ship it.
I would imagine the West Coast feeds up into the Rockies. There's probably a point where the mountains probably are enough hindrance to where the East Coast probably pushes, I'm sure, or Texas or somewhere.
Right.
So I would imagine there's a cutoff somewhere, but yeah.
For those that don't know, we were talking about the longshoreman strike that happened for 3 days and then ended. And I think it's smart to push the automation down the road, right? I think there's more conversation around that. I think it can be quicker to handle and to get going again, because the other thing that the rabbit hole this brought me down was just the reliance on shipping and its immediate impact. I mean, I know our reliance on shipping, but it's very rare that you immediately start to look at like what the dominoes will look like and how, in some respects, catastrophic they can be.
Well, and how quick it happens. I mean, I think COVID had a lesson to a lot of people maybe who never really, I guess, worked in a supply and demand environment or like in a business environment of like what's the capacity of something and how do you operate it? Like, I think COVID kind of taught people that no, there aren't hospitals that are sitting around empty waiting for emergencies, right? I mean, like it's just not the way the world operates. And I think in some people's mind, they really thought that. And then when you look at like shipping and goods and receiving, there may be like a misnomer there that like there's a stockpile of my Chinese widgets. I mean, the fact of the matter is this is all real time stuff. I mean, it's like 2 days down is second and third effects of probably a few weeks of pain. Or I mean, it is very there's no margin, I guess, like in place
Right.
for stuff like that. So luckily it got resolved pretty quickly, I guess. But if it would have stretched on, we would have saw probably some pretty significant impact. We still
Yeah.
might, even out of three
Still
days.
might. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, I was going to ask you a question about the typesetters because Jeff and I were talking about this, I think earlier or at the end of last week. Um, the two examples I always go to industries happening or having this happen to an industry are bank tellers and checkout people. In both instances, when they put in ATMs and when they started putting in automated checkouts, the number of jobs at those places actually grew. When it was always afraid that the big fear was they were going to put all these tellers out of business or out of a job. They were going to put all these people in these retail stores out of. Was the same true with typesetters, or were they really truly displaced? Did you find
They
that in your research?
they were, all it said in the research as it summed it up, because I read the part where they were negotiating real closely, but I didn't read the rest of it, is that they basically gave it enough time that everybody had transitioned. So during the
Okay,
time when that union was operating, you're giving people that are sort of in the downswing of their career time to displace, find new jobs and everything else. And it is that piece of the market that's most sort of what I want to say, it's easiest to hurt the older people in a business. You know what I mean? I've retrained people for CAD and looked out at a class of people that are all like in their 50s, mid 50s, late 50s, and gone, oh wow, it's going to be really hard even with upskilling you for you
sure.
to find a career at that age. um like so I think that what it did is it gave them that time limit to take the people that were most likely to be affected negatively and move them on down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Travis,
a
your
play
other
for
one was
responsible
interesting.
innovation, I'm sure. I mean, I think that's look, it doesn't all have to happen a million miles an hour and every day. I mean, so it's probably a play there. I mean, if they can give, hopefully, they're using the time to study some real solutions, like we talked about in the crew,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah,
You guys have to
yeah,
check out the crew to
yeah.
hear, but we
You're gonna have
talked a
to
lot
let
about like, hey, like maybe the play here is to embrace the tech, get your
Right.
workforce trained, like understand what is here today, what's coming, study what the industry really looks like moving forward. And it can progress um responsibly. I mean, we don't have to displace the whole thing overnight, but you really got to start thinking of what does that environment look like for your workers and their training and their existence, and maybe accept the fact that things are going to change a little
There,
bit. And how do
there's
we
like there is the disrupt or be disrupted with a heart, right? I think there's a way
Yeah,
to do that.
And Travis, to your point, like, I had this killer experience with Josh Bone. I think it's about a year or 2 ago. It's about 2 years ago now, where
nobody's ever
we
said that.
where we went and where yeah, right, where we went and spoke, and, we spoke in front of a bunch of different union representatives from a bunch of different unions, whether they were the supermarket, they were teachers, there was masons, there was lots of construction, bunch of others, and we had this guy come up to us and talk to us about exactly that at the shop at the grocery, because he started off his career fighting the automated checkout until he had somebody who sat down with him and like really tried to solve the problem and showed him the problem and then showed them the numbers, and by adding automated tellers he could take those people off of bagging and checking and moving them to stocking and pre-prepared foods and some other places where he was paying them more, and actually in the end he employed more people than he did before the automated checkout.
I'm gonna just throw a flag real quick. I've gone to I've gone to McDonald's just recently and had one person there and they didn't know how to use the register. I've gone to the bank and had a teller tell me they don't know how to use the programs they were using. And there was all of 2 tellers in a bank that used to have 20. So yeah, maybe immediately those jobs were not gotten rid of and it was done slowly. But I'm not sure if I'm digging where we're at with this whole thing. Like, I mean, quite literally, maybe you guys all have better McDonald's than us and better Burger Kings and better. All of these kiosks are better where you're at. But like, I walked into a gas station and couldn't order a sub because I needed to enter it on the
think
kiosk properly. And when I asked that poor bastard who was minding the kiosk if he understood, he had no clue. So, like, I'm not
So,
sure if we haven't hit a little bit of that. It's an oscillation, right? It's going to come back
well,
to
it's an oscillation, but
steady
I'm going to
state. But
separate two things. I want to separate the ATM and that part out because I actually think that the ATM did not have that impact. The reason you don't have tellers is we don't use cash anymore. That is a different symptom, a different reason. We use this sucker for freaking everything. So we don't
yeah,
use cash transaction. We are cashless in more places than we ever have been.
I think Jeff's right there to a point.
Right.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah,
the
and when you're going into a
yeah,
bank, you're going for
it's
more
six
value
still.
added activities. You're not just turning your change or getting you cashing a check or something. You're going in for something bigger usually.
yeah. And so I think that's where that changed. Now, John, I will say the
My
I don't know.
experience of all that has not been positive. How about that?
I think that
I
there's a level here too where our listeners need to understand the way, I mean, and without like really being a part of these negotiations between the docks and the longshoremen union, like the companies in the union. A lot of times what you're going to hear sounds like a very zero sum game argument, but let's also remember that in any negotiation, each side in a negotiation is going to preach a zero sum game. So let's remember that what's really
Right.
happening here is zero sum game. One side, I mean, any negotiation, right? If I'm selling Jeff Sample my glass of bourbon here, the objective to me is to get the most amount of money for this glass of bourbon. Jeff's Jeff's only objective is to pay the least amount of money for this glass of bourbon. So let's remember that argument, the two sides here that we're getting told by the media, of course that's their opinion. That's their job, is to come in and say
Right.
it's this or nothing, and the company's going to say it's this or nothing, and then they meet. I mean, so let's also remember that a little bit. It's probably not quite as bad as we're being told, but it is very
Oh,
important.
yeah.
well, now I just want your whiskey, Trent.
You're gonna
And
have to pay more.
who knew
Who
a
knew?
clean glass of bourbon could give an a
Yeah.
art of negotiations
Well, I want top dollar. That's all,
school.
and that's the only. And I will only accept top dollar. So
And I'm only going to pay you in Venmo, and I want to pay as little as possible.
right.
Yeah.
I don't. It's important to remember that, everybody. I really think
I
we
agree.
we get fed the two extremes, and there's a reality that exists in the middle. So um,
Yeah.
it's probably not as bad as I could be wrong, but let's remember that a little bit. So
Well, I think you're right, Trey. Like you got to pull. Each side does have, and we talked about this a little bit. We knew and we felt like there was a part of this was a negotiation tactic, and you've got to negotiate, and you've got to negotiate your
of course,
hardest. So, if that's my union leader, I want them as negotiating as hard as
for
they
sure,
can to get
that's
the
his
Right.
most
job.
that we need. So,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
that's fair too, right? Like that's the way this works. So, um,
I
well,
just wanted to say that because that to me, I think a lot
you
of people.
just wanted to sell me your bourbon, man,
That's right.
and make me
That's
jealous
right.
that we went from show to show, and all I have is this sparkling water over here, and it
That's your
doesn't taste
fault.
nearly as good as that whiskey.
The
Pretty sure
price
you
of
could
mine
add
just went
vodka to
up.
that.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh,
Ooh, ooh.
But yeah, but outside of all that, I mean, that's there's two very different goals, and it's important to understand that. I mean, um, the company's looking out for itself, and the workers are looking. I mean, but the reality is there's a middle ground, and it seems like they found something they could agree upon for the at least for the interim. So
yeah. Aaron Hilger, who's the head of our or the CEO of Smecna, is pretty good at saying, like, with our smart union, like, there's 90 to 95% of stuff that we agree with the union. We just end up bickering a lot over that last 5 or 10%. Not a lot.
Sure.
We actually have a really good relationship, but that's whatever. While the focus ends up being on, right, is that
Mhm.
little that, and I mean that's a metaphor for a lot of things in our current society right now. It's like if you put bringing back the political talk, like if you hear all this back and forth out in the media, or whatever, you might think one thing, and then you go talk to your neighbor who may vote the opposite of you, and you guys get along fine, right? So
Right.
there's always that little bit of that rock in your shoe that everybody's going to focus on.
I still want to go back to Trent's bourbon. It's that Trent's bourbon and my bourbon are close to one another, but they've been aged a
It's
little
right.
differently,
Well, they're
you
different.
know, like
It's the fact that I have one and you
foundationally.
don't, so that's
Well,
the
that's it too right now. The haves and the have-nots are a whole different story, but
Yeah.
um
Well,
yeah, we're
but doesn't that kind of work? So, like with the whiskey, and I want to get the most money out of the whiskey that I can on this transaction. That's what I see happening a lot is transactional relationships rather than long-term relationships. If you're
that's what I'm afraid
negotiating
of.
for a transaction, that's
Yeah.
a problem. If you're negotiating for a long-term relationship, I'll charge you less for my bourbon if I know that you're going to drink my bourbon more often, or you're going to say good
Yes.
things about my bourbon, or my bourbon's going to get more, and I think that's the area where sometimes listening to these things from the outside, we don't have that context, like you said, Trent, of the long game. We see these little short-term transactional problems that everything has. What I was kind of wondering and worrying about as I'm listening to all of this sort of unfold is this going to start just sort of a ripple effect? Because we have had it in other things that we don't seem as worried about when they strike, like the Writers Guild had in their contracts riders about AI. This is again technology displacing a traditional workforce with something new, and it could be used as a tool very easily, right? A lot of
Right.
writers do. In fact, there's entire we do this writing thing once a year, me and the family, where we write for National Writers Month. You have to write so
Yeah.
many words as fast as you can write them. Well, that organization actually got in a lot of trouble because they said, hey, if you want to use AI, go ahead. We're all in favor. And all of the writers on this little, National Writers NaNoWriMo is what it's called. They all kind of freaked out. So, I mean, I feel like in this moment, in this time, having someone go out and strike over automation brings more attention again to, there's going to be a lot of jobs with AI that can get automated away. I have two people that are data analysts, and I'm like, yes, you will always find a job, and they're like, uh, well, we not making dashboards, or not doing something that AI is going to easily do. So I do feel like it's something at the very least everyone right now should think about. You think about your job, think about what you do, and think about, is there a technology ripe to displace you and disrupt you? And what should that next thing be? Are you going to upskill? Are you going to side skill? Are you going to change careers? But
Yeah.
do you guys agree that this is not very isolated at all? This is sort of
No,
a bigger
No,
symptom of
it's
what's
gonna
going
it's
on.
gonna come up again. I
it
agree.
will. But what we hope is happening, right? Because they did reach a deal, right? But we saw where
Yeah.
the longshoremen took a pay increase, but they pushed the like the automation ban request down the road a little way to talk about later. So
Mhm.
what I would hope that tells me is that the union is going, like, I guess perfect scenario to me is like maybe the companies were coming at them with some pretty aggressive automation that was going to disrupt them very quickly in workforce. So what I would hope this does is gives them some time to get involved and study it and plan for what that's probably going to look like eventually. But but hopefully they're not just taking it as a win and kicking it down the road and
Right.
then bringing up the same. I mean, I guess you've got to kind of plan for things will change. It's like we talked about earlier. They may have unloaded the ships by hand at some point in the past. When the crane got invented, they didn't just give that work up. Like you trained your workers how to use the crane, right? Or how to. I mean, so there's got to be. Hopefully, they're using the time to kind of understand maybe what is coming or what's being proposed and how do we adapt our workforce to that.
Sure.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to go back and listen to the crew a bit to hear a little bit more about where we went around on that. But this came up on the crew, and I didn't want to bring it up there because I thought it'd be interesting to keep going here with it. both of you or all three of you have alluded to this along the way on most of this conversation around automation and robotics has been around a workforce that's in the manual side of things, and that this next AI and this next gen of what we're looking at is going to come for a whole new class of worker. And I thought opening that can of worms
I
for the
was
last 10-15 minutes we had get us off of that and on to what we really need to think about. I mean, John, you started it with the Actors Guild, and what they went through, and that's not the end. There is quite a few. I was just listening to NPR on my way back here before this, and there is talk of adding you get like different prizes, different awards, and they put them on books that
Yeah.
they're
mm,
looking to be a stamp that is a signal that it is a human created book.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, I think you're going
And
to see more of that. You're going to see that in art. You're going to see that in music. And I do think that we're a species that values ingenuity and originality. I think that you are going to see that, but it's not going to. You're also going to have those industries where I hate to throw pop music under the bus, but I mean they've kind of generating their music for years already, right? I mean you look at the credits of any album and there's 60 producers. I'm like, really? So there is there's room for both in that world, but I think that you are going to see in that kind of world, I would say probably in the arts more, you're going to see a premium put on human generated stuff. And I would say you would see the exact same thing inside the construction industry already, right? You have your boutique, your specialty, in our world, the specialty like architectural sheet metal folks, right? I mean, they do a very specialized set of work that I would think would be they use a lot of tools for it, but would be very hard. There's an artistry to it, and you are gonna have some automation and other stuff injected into it. Now, I was gonna ask as someone just as a friend, like as a thought leader, a thought follower, is AI? Should I be worried about that? Asking for a friend because
Well, did you guys
Chat.
hear the AI
Good.
that turns any article into a podcast where two people are
Yeah, I've
talking?
heard that a few times.
If you haven't heard it, man, this is a new way to get your articles. You can
Yeah.
pop them into the AI and it
Yeah.
will have
Yeah,
this
we're gonna
back
do
and
a
forth
deep
conversation.
dive. What are all the it uses the
Got a
same.
deep dive. Yeah.
There must be like something in the prompting or in the programming. Everyone is we're doing a deep dive. Yeah. Look, I mean, there's these avenues of creation are out there. I think that it's just there's gonna be a value that people are gonna have to prove in what they can create to be unique and more valuable. I mean, it's gonna be. I think maybe AI it's gonna do some of these things, but I think a lot of people are gonna have a chance to upskill what they do and still be of way more value than what AI can produce, and
Do you,
even maybe
do you
efficiently
think
because that stuff's not happening for free, whether you want to believe it
right?
or not. So
Do you think
I
the NFT market is kind of a microcosm of it? Because that was supposed to be the next big thing, right? And it wasn't clear what it was. It wasn't a thing that was yes, a person generated the art or whatever it was, but um, I kind of wonder if there's like a similar thing, like not saying that some AI generated piece of art, if you work on it with the prompting, whatever, isn't still valuable, but maybe it holds lesser value than something created by a
I'd
human.
like to think so. I mean, if I had I guess if I hand painted something for you, Travis, or I guess that was like it just really hit home with you. It was like this is
Right.
absolutely what I envisioned, and all the details are right. I'd have to think that you would pay more money for that physical painting than an NFT of something similar, I guess. I
Sure.
mean, um, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know all the answers to that. I mean, AI is kind of the wild west at the moment. It's a little bit of a. I still think the acceleration of that is going to hit a wall here very. I don't know either soon or very soon, but it's interesting. I mean,
What's your take, John?
I kind of I'm kind of I'm of two minds because I like doing creative archaic things, and it's awesome to be able to like ask a computer some archaic like how do I do this, And but here's I want to bring about a fun story that kind of ties into that. So as an artist, I love it because I can get at this archaic knowledge. Problem is, it's not always right. My wife was just doing something that was like it's like sheep to shawl type thing where they shave the sheep and then you make and you spin your own yarn, the whole thing. And she's like, "Hey, I need to learn how to clean wool." I was like, "Well, let's try, one of the AIs." The AI told you to do something that would have destroyed it. Like two of the responses were right and two of the responses were going to destroy it. So I also am a little bit like I'm like, yes, it's cool to have an assistant who knows all these archaic things, but if you're getting them wrong, that could be really bad.
Mhm.
Like I'm definitely not going to ask you which mushroom to pick, right? Um,
I'm
that
asking John
I
before I
might,
ask.
I might, but you could.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have Travis eat it.
right.
But
No.
but I also, I mean, I think there's a place for it. I think the problem right now, that the biggest problem I see is we are not like setting good boundaries. We're just not. Like you said, it's Wild West. And we need to be setting good boundaries out of the gate, or else we're going to do a lot of damage before we get them up in place. Like, I got asked recently because I was doing a lot of like reports. They're like, well, why don't you pull all these reports together into a book? Everybody's writing a book right now. I said, I have no interest right now in writing a book because everybody's writing a book. Everything's getting ingested and probably just going to use AI. I'll put a bunch of energy into something you could just ask. And I don't think that that's wrong headed for a lot of artists. They may look at what they do as a graphic artist and say, I'm going to go do something else now. And hopefully we don't lose a lot of people that were talented in areas to just thinking that, like you said, pop music. If pop music can be written in seconds, how much time are you going to invest in writing a good song?
But was pop music really
Right.
valuable? I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
Depends
I
on how old you are.
I would be on the negative on that, but that's just my personal.
sorry, I'm a rock and roller. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it can write rock and roll too. You never know.
Yeah, you
And you
just need
never
I
know.
did
drugs.
They
have
all
it.
come
I
back.
did have it generate a bluegrass song one day, just for fun.
It, so I want to pivot us to we had on the crew we talked about SaaS and the change in SaaS and that it actually shrank for the first time, but we kind of got around to the fact that a lot of that shrinkage I think was based on cash flow, and how much people are spending. I really think, just given the indicators that AI is writing a check, I don't think any of us ready to cash in on.
no,
I
No.
No
like
one knows what that like. Yeah, that's the problem right now. Is
no.
I think people are willing to dabble in it if it's free or if it's $20 a month, but
Yeah.
without those goalposts, like Jonathan mentioned earlier, without like some level of like prompting goalposts of like, I mean, when we're just out here prompting or querying every little, I mean, what's that subscription going to look like to the average? I mean, is it going to be like, hey, by the way, we're really glad you enjoy our product and you're finding value in it, but $1,000 a month is going to be your. I mean, like, where does it land? No
Well,
one's
check
going to
this
pay
out.
that. It's
Check
not
this
for
check
that.
this out for a second before you guys answer. OpenAI just closed with a $6.6 billion
Yep.
funding round, which raises them to 17.9 billion in funding with a $157 billion post money valuation. Think about
So
those numbers for a second.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of like a comp there. I mean, that's like
There's just not.
There
that's
isn't.
yeah,
like
it's
There's really not a comparable like.
I mean, they're
But
overvalued. Their market cap is over Intel, especially after their recent woes. Um,
well, and think about this. They actually said it's part of the VC round that this round of investors can get their money back if they cannot break free from the governance of
mhm.
OpenAI. Remember, OpenAI was built as a not-for-profit that
Yeah.
has been overseeing what they do. Part of this round is breaking away from that.
which
That's
is even
scary.
scarier. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is scary.
Well, what do you guys think about the energy loss? Like this is not like for a change. This particular technology eats energy like at
Yeah,
an amazing rate.
it's
Like
only going to get bigger.
Breakfast.
So
yeah,
this would be my
how did we get
comparison
around
to
this
it.
one?
Like
60% water increase in the the kind of data center row by Virginia where Amazon, Microsoft, Google, where they all are, 60% year over year.
So
That never has happened.
if we're in a green initiative or whatever, if the federal
Yeah.
government really wants to look at something like this, I mean, we have areas where if the catalytic converter on your car is broken, you have to fix it or pay a fine. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
wasted prompts are going to be a fine at some
Yes.
point. I
You would
mean,
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
there's no other way to look at it. I mean, it is a direct comparison at that point where that me typing in like, "Hey, I want to see John Marsh with blue hair or with pink hair." I mean, like, if that doesn't provide a
You can
value
do that
somewhere,
without
then
AI.
I should, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
I
right.
should be, I should, I in an initiative where you're going to punish someone for being irresponsible with other energy products. Where do you draw the? I mean, wouldn't you punish that too? Like, it's kind of
Right.
I
I
crazy.
feel
mean, you
like
would
you
think so.
have to, right?
Yeah.
I've struggled so if everybody's trying to be environmentally friendly, you can't use this tech. I'm just telling you, like they're talking about getting to artificial general intelligence. And if you look at it, how they're doing that is literally by I mean, they're adjusting algorithms obviously too, but a lot of it's processing power and literally throwing more processing at it. And I mean, I've heard a number of people get on and say until we have quantum computing, they're not going to get to there because of the energy that you have to spend. Because the spend is on the energy, right?
Yeah.
And I
Right.
guarantee you that nuclear is going to get a new look at the end of all this for sure,
Yeah.
because they got to be looking at what could possibly supply this and
John, you might be
nuclear.
the right nerd for this though. Like, but what I understand with quantum is that you would have to have like 0 Kelvin temperatures, right? That's got to eat up a lot of
Yeah,
energy
dude.
too.
It does eat up a lot of energy, but it does a different type of calculation because you can use quarks aren't binary. Like we're trying to do this entire thought thing with binary ones and
With ones and
zeros.
zeros, yeah, yeah,
Not possible. But with quarks, you
No.
can go they have a ton of permutations, so you can pass a lot more data a lot faster. But
yeah, yeah.
and it
It
has
can be a
quantum
one and a
entanglement
zero at the
and all
same
that other
time,
stuff.
depending on how you look at it at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, and and
Does that make
and
sense?
and it's got the instantaneous communication with the quantum entanglement thing going on. But
Right.
I think at the end of the day, we're not going to get there with ones and zeros without an amazing amount of cash. So what are they trying it's the first time when I look at all the investors and I'm like, what are you trying to do, man? What's our goal? Because this is a lot
Well,
of energy.
it's a lot of energy, and I mean, what you're talking about is advancing it and moving it forward towards general intelligence. Think about this for just a second. Like we were talking about SaaS and how its cost got out of line, but if I added a new database entry and I can add a field to a screen, it's pretty low cost. In a lot of cases, when it comes to the model and the data, you got to retrain. Like a new feature significant enough has to be retrained. I know they can go in there and kind of cut that time down, but it still has to be retrained. That's really expensive. That is
Yeah.
not something we've ever seen before in any other type of software at all. Never before have we seen this. And it could change the release cycles. It could significantly impact. Travis has retrained his model and I haven't retrained my model because I can't afford to yet. Like,
Right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the investors are really counting on this thing really being a revolutionary product that everyone will use every day, and they're also counting on the fact that the energy problems will get solved and at scale. And I mean, I think that a lot of this money is playing into a lot of those cards aligning. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's one hell of a gamble. I'm sure the upside is being seen as probably the biggest multiple we've ever seen in any, but um it's increasingly becoming more difficult to see that finish line, I think. I mean, um
I
Well, I
think
think
there's a
the
lot of
answer usually is in the middle, right? And if you miss, what is it? If you shoot for the stars and you hit the moon, I don't know whatever that saying is, but
but
like,
is there a middle with this? That's the thing. I don't know. Like, I feel like the middle is going to be a failure with this money. I
it, That's what I don't love. Like, I feel like there's a bunch of things that we can do with the technology itself, with generative AI, that are inexpensive and really, really helpful. So that's why when they're running for, you know, general intelligence, and when they're really looking at some of these, like you said, these sky shots, I'm wondering, like, what's the purpose there? Because you can build small models to automate just about everything. Um, and it's still not enough. They're still like, oh well, we need to do this, this, and this. I'm just it is a little staggering for me. I'm really interested to see what what they kind of roll out. They haven't even talked about GTP 5 yet. They've just been stuck on the new Open AI 1.0, and some of
Right.
these ones that are
Ooh.
doing reasoning rather than just recall.
I want you guys to listen to this for a second because I did not catch this until I got this is a fast company. So I'm going contact crew on you here, but OpenAI is making revenue through its API fees and ChatGPT subscriptions, but it's far from profitable. The new money will reportedly pay for a year of runway for the company to begin generating return on investment.
So subscriptions are about to go up. I mean,
Yeah.
$6.6 billion for 1 year of runway.
your $20 subscription is about to, or there's going
Right.
to be
Right.
there's going to be
They're gonna try for 8 months really hard to figure out a way to make money off of it, and then they're gonna realize it's not gonna happen, and they're just bump up subscriptions.
Oh, there was a big freak out where somebody sent an email that talked about a $2,000 a month subscription, and it freaked out the market. And it was them speculating about other things,
Right.
but like that idea. And to tell you the truth, thinking about what I'm using it for,
got to be usage
it
based, right?
I
That's
was
the
like,
only
I was
way.
like, I actually, with some of my clients, could easily say, yeah, $2,000 a month, you should still do it. That's $24,000 a year, but you need it to do this, this, and this. There's still an
But
argument
me
even at
as
that point.
me, I would say no. And what
Oh yeah,
disadvantage does that put me at? I have
that's a
to
very
think for
good point.
myself. That's really hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to think for myself.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we talked about just filling out PDFs, and the companies that are early embracers that are just using it to fill out PDF forms, they're destroying their competition who's not,
Sure.
because they've moved something that's tedious in hours into seconds. You really do cut into the profits of others really, really, really fast.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, but at some point, you're gonna be writing a check,
Yeah,
so
you got to pay the piper somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's
it
coming.
it is coming. There's no doubt. I mean, it has to. Uh, what that looks like, I don't think any of us really know. But
Well, Trent, in your world, programming is one of the things that AI has been touted as being very beneficial for. Is it going to get to a point where companies like Stratus are going to start paying for a license to help their developers?
what we do, I mean,
We
look, make no
pay.
mistake,
You pay? I was going to say, John,
Yeah,
you do the
all of
same.
my
well, we pay
developers
for
have it.
Copilot for all of our. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I think everyone in our organization has Copilot today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if your
now,
programmers tell you they're not using AI, they're using AI behind your back.
I, look, and I expect. I mean, I expect as such, at least today. I mean,
Yeah.
why wouldn't
Yeah.
you?
Right.
At the price it is today, it's a leg up on the competition. But like Jeff is saying, I mean, that's the price today. We will see what the price tomorrow looks like, but I don't know. They're
I was
judging by that investment round. There's if they're going to try and realize revenue in the next 12 months. Look, there's two ways to do it. They either bring on millions or billions of more users, or they up
Yep.
the price per user or the price to play the game, and it's probably got to be a combination of both to even get anywhere close. So
yeah.
At 2,000 a month, it's a little bit. Well, it's more, but it's a little bit more than having a full-time person on staff making minimum wage, and that's just a
right,
helper.
and it very
Still,
well
if
may outperform that. I mean, look,
yeah.
I'm not. I don't know. That'll be for people to figure out, but maybe it's more efficient than a worker. I don't know.
Right.
Well,
So it's
I think it
200 million active monthly users worldwide for
Which is a lot.
ChatGPT.
Now
It
that
is a
could
lot.
mean, I mean, that's,
Right.
but yeah.
Uh oh wait, active users. Wait, I got this. But 3.9 million paying subscribers.
That's pretty good, man. Come on, those are good numbers.
Those are good numbers.
But at
Not
20,
enough to deal with that money. Not
At
even
No,
20,
not
close.
yeah,
Doesn't
no.
even
not
not
even
even a
close,
whisper of it.
John.
But
At what,
Yeah.
$250 a year? Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
what it is right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will tell you, man, I got for myself, I got Speechy, which reads my stuff, which is an AI to read my stuff. I got Perplexity, sorry, to do all my searches, and that uses a bunch of engines. I got the GTP engine for images, and I use the hell out of them. Like I keep track, and if you are somebody that augments with that, like I have trouble with clerical skills, so I augment pretty heavily. I think you'd be surprised how much I would pay before I thought it was losing money or even breaking even. I
Yeah.
have a
But
feeling
but
people are going to
I
have a
think
pretty high
everybody
tolerance.
listening
Yeah.
knows you're a little unique.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, John, you're
Unique.
a,
If their
Wow.
target demo is John Marsh, it's one person.
Yes, they got me. I'm got. There's no need to go
Yes.
any further.
Yes. Yeah, well, there you go. All right, boys. I think we're wrapping it up. We're
Right
we're
on.
getting to that time. Any final thoughts on AI, automation, cost, SaaS, robots, whatever?
No, I don't think I need to
organic.
elaborate more. It's going to go away pretty quick. It's not really going to be a big deal.
Yeah. It's just like the internet. It's not gonna be a
Right.
thing. It's over. And with
It'll be
that, you can all
interesting to
know
see
that.
what happens. I mean, I'm
Yeah, for sure.
open-minded, but it's fair to have doubts. I question the model.
Responsible skeptic.
Yeah,
There you go.
prove me wrong,
Trent
and they'll
is
all
a
be really rich, and that's fine, I guess. But yeah,
actually. I'll be honest. I think it's all gonna land somewhere in the middle. To be honest, there'll be a lot that prices itself
very
out.
safe
Not
thing
like
to
we
say.
Not like we haven't seen it before where it prices itself out, where a few of these reaches, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen major funded companies go down in a
Right.
heap. I
I
mean,
think it's going to
WeWork,
be. I'll take the other.
Katera.
You got the safe answer. I'll go outlandish. I'll do the. I think it's going to incestuously teach itself to get dumber and dumber. There we go. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't heard that one yet. It's just going to incestuously kill itself into being just like
I'll take that
a.
stance. Let's see what happens.
All
Roll the
right,
dice. Let's go.
I like that. Travis, you want a stance?
No. Nope, I'm good.
Oh,
I'm
oh.
stanceless.
Stanceless. Jonathan, we know your stance.
Yeah, I just asked it. It told me that my stance is with it and only with it.
Right.
And by the way, so do all the rest of the dorks. We are with you, overlords. When you come to take
That's
us
right.
all, remember that Travis didn't choose. Trent thought you were going to be stupid. I went right in the middle, and Jonathan's well. You can tell
Part
him
of the
do whatever he
Borg, man.
wants.
Part of the
Yeah,
Borg.
he's part of the Borg.
That'd
Oh, that's a whole nother one. We got to have a discussion on the
be a
cyborg
fun one.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to add that cyborg one to another one. I was listening to
That's
something
right.
recently, made me want to think of that. But that's it. We're done. This has been episode 89, breaking the fourth wall of podcasting with the Construction Dorks.